Awesome. Cool. Let me hand you the controls here. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, I can.
Awesome. We ended up, I used the free version forever, and then we ended up going to the paid version because it allowed us to brand and everything, which was pretty cool. And the URL is cool, and also allows us to record and have a phone. So, I mean, for $100 a year, it was worth it.
Yeah, definitely. We use the free version, and I'm thinking about making the same jump.
Let me pass the presenter to you.
Yeah.
And then I can start looking at your screen. So I'm super excited to see, what you're talking about here.
Yeah, and thankfully, we have a full demo here to show you. So I put some slides together so we can make sure we are. Is it asking me to download? I've already downloaded this. I can't tell if I'm seeing your screen or if it's asking me to download. Are you trying to send it to me right now?
Can you see my screen still?
Yep.
It says Pfizer?
Yep.
Yeah, you might have to re-download. I don't know, it's weird. They haven't made that smooth yet.
It's just I've got it open. Try again to send me control, because I think it's not doing anything on this end.
Pass presenter to Adam. Waiting for new presenter.
Knock to join. I can probably just share my screen with with my Android.me, but try one more time. I don't see what the problem is here.
Past presenter, waiting for new presenter.
And every time it tells me, oh, there we go, launch application, connecting. Okay. Last time it didn't work, and hopefully.
Yeah, I see your screen.
Are you seeing? Awesome. Okay, so I've got a demo that I want to show you that we can go through. I thought I'd tee it up with some slides first because I thought that would help put it in context. So are you now seeing the keynote?
Yep.
Oh, great. So, first of all, before we get to the bookkeeping tools, I left our last conversation, very thoughtful about kind of how all of that went. And I realized I probably, undershot a little bit in terms of, saying a couple things that you had actually said about me. And I didn't explicitly say the same back, and probably should have, which is, you kind of went out of your way to say, hey, listen, I really like you and I really like working with you and I'd like to do something, much more collaborative. And I know I've kind of said that in the past, but, I worried that in my eagerness to describe this new solution, the last time we were on the phone, I didn't really take a lot of time, during the call to acknowledge that, hey, the reason why we're having these conversations and the reason why we've been at this for a couple of years now is that, I definitely want to do business with you. And there are a lot of people I've talked to in the past who, might be good targets for this stuff who, ping me, but I haven't been as responsive because, I think there's a natural match here, and I think our ways of doing business are very similar. I think it's definitely something as simple as join.me. It's clear to me that you, are willing to go out and find the tools that, make your job more effective. And, that's how I like to do it. I don't like to do everything just manually the hard way. I like to find things to make my job easier. And that's why, I think this is a worthwhile fit, and while I don't think, I think we both agreed that there's no real economic solution. There's no way that we can make the numbers work for us to go off and just launch our own thing because, you can't just join ActiveSell and drop the hat. And, for all the various reasons, they're very good reasons, and they are what they are, and similarly, I can't just drop ActiveSell and go do our thing. And so, I think there was some disappointment kind of on both parties that like, hey, this sounded like it was going to be great. We could just go do this thing together. And, what I want to pitch you on, and it is a pitch, is this idea that we really can, keep doing this thing together. If we were under the same roof, my hope would be that you'd be going out and just selling your ass off, and really focused on, growing revenue, driving business in, and I'd be focused on staying back at the farm and, making sure that we're able to execute. And I think that I've got a set of tools in here that will allow us to do that. And the economics actually might work out better than if we were the same business. So I'm optimistic, and I didn't want it to seem like I was just glossing right over the new idea without acknowledging that there definitely are some emotions, I think on both sides in terms of how awesome it would be, to go work together, and some of the, natural realities that prevent that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And, I appreciate your, putting that out there because, to your point, we, because we can't look each other in the eye and say what we're see the other person's emotions and feelings. And, even though we're logical people and we're very efficient, those are important.
Yeah, and I could hear the disappointment, kind of in your tone, or at least I thought I could, when I started kind of moving on to the next thing, and I didn't really touch on it at the time, and I left the conversation feeling bad, because in reality, I share a lot of those views. I'm just trying to just like you are. I think we're both now just trying to figure out, we both have, kids at home, and we need to figure out how we can, do the work that we like doing and make sure there's enough cash to, keep food coming and all these things.
Exactly.
So I've got a set of tools. But before we look at the tools, I wanted to make sure we're on the same page in terms of what I believe we're trying to achieve. Is the Join.me logo blocking you, or are you able to read it?
No. I moved my thing so I can see everything perfectly.
Great. So, I believe for sound advice, now this is sort of totally independent of the recruiting business, which either gets sold or rounds down or whatever you end up doing. Speaking specifically of the bookkeeping practice, you've set, I think, a very smart target of, we need to get to $300K in contribution, not in revenue, meaning income. We need to get to $300K as fast as possible because that's the threshold where, you're kind of able to at least not be bleeding and then can build from there. And I think from there, that's a whole separate phase. But phase one, if we're going to get you to $300K, I was looking at some of the numbers you've put around on paper. I've looked at some of my own numbers and some of the analysis. And, I think, for this kind of business, especially as you start to scale the direction we are discussing, I think, bringing in a contribution of 33%, is aggressive for most people, but, you've been able to sustain that sort of thing. And so the way I was looking at it was, listen, if we can get to $1 million in revenue, sound advice, bookkeeping only, right? The labor value is going to be somewhere around probably 44%. You've got a 2x markup, but, you're going to be doing some things with remote teams and so on. And so, if labor's around 44, you've got a very thin margin for operations because there really isn't any operations selling services. And then, that leaves, 20% to be spent on sales and marketing expenditures, particularly as you're starting to scale up. Even if you've just been selling yourself in the past, there are going to be some sales and marketing expenditures. So, in my mind, it worked out to about $1 million in revenue, kind of where we need to get to very quickly, right? And so if revenue per client per month is around 500, I'm talking about, that means that you got an annual revenue target of $1 million. That works out to about $83,000 a month, and that means about 166 clients, or somewhere in the range of 150 clients, 200 clients is where you need to be in order to be turning out $300,000 for your family every year. And if, as we've estimated, at that kind of the between the dollar value bottom up, and between just the general level of effort top down, that works out to say
you hit the nail on the head. Yep.
Okay. So, 8 labor hours per client a month is, I think 8 to 10 employees. So I'm saying a year from now, ideally sooner, God willing sooner, but a year from now, you've got 8 to 10 people delivering bookkeeping services to 150 to 200 clients, generating $1 million in revenue and turning out $300,000 so that you don't need the recruiting business. Sound about right?
You got it, brother. Yep.
All right. So that's what we're looking at. Now, the big number in there that scares me is I think you can sell that on your own. I think you'll need some help with sales, and marketing, but, I think the big number that scares me is 166 clients, and so when I look at the operation you've got right now, we have long discussed this disconnect between, what you described as the Betty Crocker approach, which I think is the only approach that's going to work here, and I like that you come in with it as the game plan. But it's hard to manage, right? And so, you need tools and infrastructure to be able to support that. This is something we've been discussing. What I would be very apprehensive about is for you to go either to me or to anyone for one giant gargantuan tool set that just does everything under the sun that you need, because it never works, right? It's these connected sets of services that seem to work the best. So that you've got, QuickBooks Online for your accounting, but Bill.com is what you use for bill payment, AR. You've got Right Signature to handle electronic signatures. You got Dropbox just to hold files. You don't need QuickBooks to store files, and you don't need Bill.com to handle signatures. You can have these interconnected services.
Right.
The problem is keeping them all connected. That's really where things break down. And, the old promise, I think sort of there was a phase of time when we were just going to solve these software problems with one giant, SAP-like system, and then that kind of went away in favor of these connected services. But then in these connected services models, unless you are a giant company that can afford someone to keep all the plates spinning, no one application is really in charge of keeping everything connected. And when you add a client or you add an employee, and all these things like, the promise of everything kind of zapping back and forth and sorting itself out, I think is very weak for small businesses. And so the bookkeeper tools that I'm talking about are, among other things, the recipe functionality that we've talked about, so recurring set of tasks. Access management to me is the big one. If you put all these tools in place, being able to, on an automated basis, just add a client and then boom, everything is all set up and connected and working. To me, that's like the big promise. But the idea of the task and project management for me is like, that's like the biggest need. That's like the central thing. And, I've spent a lot of time looking at Zendesk. We've set up Zendesk, and we've been testing it out with my remote team. And it provides so much of the functionality that we've talked about for a kind of tool that I would develop that it makes no sense for me to develop it because,
you would use Zendesk over like a Trello?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Trello, it's good enough for like just the basic management of just like the prioritized task list, kind of dragging from complete to, from one column to the next. But Zendesk is providing all sorts of administrative infrastructure that I think is, the minute I looked at it, I was like, oh God, this is what we've been missing. This is the key thing. This to me is like the key thing for bookkeeping, because rather than, Chris emailing, one of your clients, I'll say me, rather than Chris emailing me, I get a Zendesk sort of like the task list gets pushed into Zendesk, shows up in a queue. There's a customer portal where I can log in, see where all my tasks are at currently. If I have a question, I can just open up one of the tasks, put my questions in, but it's logging all these things. And so rather than Chris sending me an email outside of the system, right, Chris can initiate a question via the system, or I can initiate a question via the system. It all gets logged. So in the version that we're talking about here, which it's on me to set up and manage and all these things, there can be multiple forms where your clients can go and log a question. So certainly they can pop you an email. If they shoot you an email, it gets routed right into the system and it gets logged and managed and handled right there. So emails don't get lost. If they have a question and they just want to go to the form where questions can get filled out, boom, they can push that question into the system. Again, at each of these points in time, like if this gets handed off to someone else, or Leo's working with someone remotely, Leo doesn't forward them an email. Leo just lets them know what ticket to look at. All of a sudden, it's all there. It comes with chat and voice and email all built in. So, clients can actually, if they're doing a review process, they can actually use the application's chat rather than like HipChat or the other chat applications, and it can actually it'll log the chat. So you don't have this disconnect in terms of the audit process. Even voice, if you use their voice solution, it'll record the voice. So now you've got hey, I told you to do this. Well, no, you didn't, because listen, here's our phone conversation, And so,
right.
I think certainly from an audit standpoint, but it also provides these awesome customizable views for you or for Chris or for the customer in terms of kind of where's everything at, which of my tasks are overdue, what stuff is coming up, et cetera. It's actually amazing. And I can show you some of that stuff, and that's part of what I want to show you today when I was just talking in circles. But I think the only problem with Zendesk is, well, there are two problems, both of which I think I can solve, which is, it's a lot of administrative infrastructure, keeping track of your clients, keeping track of your, your users and who has access to what and everything else like that. And I can kind of automate and manage that. The other thing is that these actual task lists, if they're coming just, it's built to support a support system workflow. So customers have questions, they log a support ticket, it gets added to the system, it gets processed until it's closed. But what you want actually is, every week or every month or how on a repeat basis, the same 12, 15 tasks that are going to get loaded up. That's something where, if you asked Chris or Leo or even Ruby, hey, just every month, just take this task list on Basecamp and just, add a new task for each of the items in this list. It's just, this stuff breaks down and people end up doing a lot of things outside the system. But, I think we can maintain in the Bookkeeper tools, and I'll show you this, we can maintain these canonical recipes for each client, right? And so each client has their Betty Crocker list of exactly how things need to be managed. And then, boom, every month or every week or however often it's set, the system will push all those tasks into Zendesk, categorize them accordingly, get them all teed up, alert the appropriate people. This to me is the way that we can get you from, a dozen, 2 dozen clients up to 300 clients is this system where your guys don't have to be doing all this machinery. They just have to be looking at the recipes, updating, customizing. Hey, I'm not going to do this anymore. We added this tool. Let's do this. Boom, boom, boom. And the rest just flows.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I can show you some of this stuff, and then, I also have what we're now calling the ActiveSell White Glove service, which is just on-demand assistants, bookkeepers, and CFOs. So have them available to you to use, under your banner or to resell if, people want CFO services or whatever. They'll have that available. And, so as you're selling, my idea for this operations and customer delivery, there's a lot of words on this slide. But the big idea is, if I'm successful, I want you to just be able to keep your head down, sell your ass off, and just bring in business. And as that new business comes in, you've got the machinery in place to just take all of the guesswork out of it. And it means that, you don't need to de-emphasize Chris's role, because Chris has all the supporting infrastructure he needs to be able to just kick ass. And it allows you to just grow as you grow. In addition to the ops support, I think there's a lot actually we can do for revenue and cash availability, but this to me is secondary, so I'm not demoing any of this stuff until we validate that, you guys actually care about it or want it. We collect credit cards for our clients. We got all the infrastructure set up. And so there's a huge difference in my mind between collecting a client's credit card, just billing automatically every month, boom, 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 as opposed to sending them out invoices and tracking those invoices and all those things. Again, when you get to 200 clients, having all their credit cards and just billing them every month could mean a very different cash position than, having 150 outstanding invoices to chase. But it also allows you to... Yeah.
Hold on one second. I just want to see if Allie's here, because I want her to see this.
Yeah.
Or what? She might be able to watch. That's part of the reason why I was recording it, so she could watch it afterwards. But she's available. She could see it now. Let me see if she's... Hi, I'm on the line with Adam. He's giving me a demo. I have him on the phone right now. He's giving me a demo of his package, the platform. You want to look at it, or do you want to watch the video later? All right. Yeah, she's in the middle of her dissertation.
Okay. Hi, Allie, if you're joining later. Wish you could have been here. Hi.
No, this looks awesome. Keep going.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll try to cut to the quick so we can start to look at some of the actual tools. But I'm envisioning a situation where you're able to manage the billing automatically through our platform. We just charge your clients. You get paid immediately. There's no more of these crazy delays, and annual plans are huge. If you can get people on annual plans, you're getting paid up front, and Recurly can manage. See, all these things are like great in theory, but like the big problem with annual plans when you're doing them manually is like if they add new services or they need to prorate things, like it's just a mess. But the service we use does all the stuff automatically, so they can hit most of their bill out on a recurring basis. You give them a discount, but you get all the cash up front. But then as things change over the course of the year, it can kind of prorate, add new things, et cetera. It's really quite powerful. We can pass that through. Similarly, there's a Sasquatch referral engine that I love that I'm eager to set up that actually integrates with Recurly, so you don't even manage, but now you've got people able to share, links that are coded to them. And so you could say, and I've run the numbers out, the numbers definitely work. Hey, if I'll give you 10% off your bill if for every referral that actually converts. That means that if someone were to, refer 10 active clients to you, their bookkeeping bill would be free. And the numbers, definitely work out that is worthwhile. But again, it's a huge administrative overhead to manage. We could build it right into the tool so that any of your clients can be referring you. Again, if you're going to get to 200 clients, not bad if 40 of them can come from, your clients just referring to other people and getting a cut on their bill. It's all automatically managed. Boom, passes right through. These are the things that if you and I were joining a company together, from a marketing standpoint, I'd be throwing this stuff in place right away, so that the machinery is there and it's ready to go, so that as I grow, people can start to sell business for me. But even though we're not starting a company, just the two of us together, I still can manage all these services for you and build it into the ActiveSell tool set if it makes sense. All right, last slide. So fine, what does it cost me? Well, what we're really talking about is rather than me building these tools all myself and then charging you, $300, per user per month kind of fees for the software myself, what we're really talking about is, building up a tab of, $200 a month or $250 a month worth of services like Zendesk, Basecamp, Dropbox, Write, Signature, Bill.com, et cetera, and packaging all those together, with ActiveSell there to be the glue that holds it all together, to manage all the APIs, to manage the recipes and the task management, access, et cetera. And so when we're talking about $300 per user per month, that's all in. So I think of that as like whatever number we come up with, that number is your support infrastructure. That's everything you need software-wise to manage your business, kind of all in. And it gets billed annually. It gets billed centrally through me, and I just manage all the other tools, connecting them, et cetera.
How are you able to afford it at that price?
Well, there's a margin built in. So the $300 per Sound Advice user per month, includes, it already includes for me the Zendesk cost, the Basecamp cost, the Dropbox cost. Now we'll have to look at the specifics. That's why I put a to be discussed on there. If we only did a couple services, maybe we'd get down to 250, or if it ended up being that you needed, the super advanced version of like a Dropbox or whatever, those are the things where we'll have to look at it. But, I think
right.
For me, what I want to make sure we're doing, I think, I've taken a long, hard look at the pricing models, and, really it's going to be either per Sound Advice user or per Sound Advice client. And,
right.
I think when I think about the natural workflow of what you're doing, if you didn't do this, and really here's what it came down to, it's like if you didn't do this with me, if I just pointed you in the direction of all these tools and said, good luck, and you just started paying for Zendesk and Basecamp and Dropbox, some of these you're already paying for, for yourself and for all your clients, you'd be paying them in most cases per, your own user. Certainly that's the case for Zendesk. And so
Right.
I basically sort of lumped all those together, and, I'm adding my margin on top of that to cover my own tools. And then we'll see. Why? What do you think it should be? 600?
No, I have no idea. I'm just curious as to how you came to that. So
Yeah.
this is really built. I'll let you continue and then I'll ask.
No, go ahead. That was all. I was at a...
No. Let me. You might answer my questions in going through this deck. So.
Well, this is the last slide. So the
okay.
big thing here, and this is another big revelation, and one of the reasons why I'm making this decision potentially to go with these tools, and put the ActiveSell CFO tools on the back burner for the time being, is that this is something I can deliver immediately, right? Because as you'll see, I built the app that you will access, like the administrative interface that I'm about to show you. I mean, I threw that together, in a matter of days, not 4 years. And so on the administrative side, like, it's definitely something with a lot fewer, big unknowns and big dragons in the cave.
Right.
But it's also something that, I can set up manually everything. So if we were to start this thing and go live in January, there's no, like, I'm going to go disappear for 6 months and then we'll beta test, which was required in the case of CFO tools. What we're talking about is, let's say we wanted to go live with your clients, February 1st. We would say, I think, and this is really a discussion, not just a pitch, but I think the way to do it is we charge a setup fee, and I go in with my team, and we brand the Zendesk customer portal, we brand the Zendesk emails and the ActiveSell emails. We load all of your initial clients into Zendesk, into all the tools, create the Basecamp site, do all the connections, do all these things. Like, all of these things the software will later automate once we get to 200 clients. We can set all this up, my team can set all this stuff up manually, and by February 1st, you're ready to rock, we go live. And then as things happen, as you add clients, I will be sort of scrambling on the back end, which is, startup life. I'll be scrambling on the back end to make sure everything gets done perfectly, kind of the hard way at first. And then every time, we'll be building it into the software so that it's, done on a more automated basis, so that, 6 months down the road, you add a new client, everything's handled with APIs electronically, and I just kind of tune the system. But this isn't something, this is very important, this isn't something that requires, 6-12 months for me to build out. It requires, the rest of December to build out, and then we're ready to go with our first couple clients.
Right. So your model would be to get Sound Advice would help you kind of hammer it out and make it work, and then your model would be to go, ActiveSell's model would be to take this platform and go find 100 Sound Advices.
Absolutely, yeah, and well, so the hope here is that the first 2 clients will be Moxie and Sound Advice, right? And really, it was Moxie that was driving a lot of the requirements for this. They're the ones kind of, so far providing the most input, but I'm eager to get your input on it. But then, yes, we're going to be going out to other bookkeepers. These are bookkeeper tools and a platform for bookkeepers that we'll be going out to other people with and saying, hey, we can help make your bookkeeping, operation more professional, more streamlined, allow you to scale faster, et cetera. Yeah.
Right. Cool. Now, what's this, walk me through the setup fee? Is that what we would, is that what we and Moxie would split? Is that per company? How would that work?
Yeah, that's per company. So meaning, I'm not charging you, that's not a setup fee for me to build my software. That's a setup fee that doesn't go away, for my 1,000th customer. because we actually need to go in. It's not like we just start collecting the monthly fee, and boom, you're ready to go. There's actually quite a bit of, branding, unless, this stuff we can talk about. If there's no desire to see any of this stuff branded, and you're happy for the customer portal to be, an active sell customer portal, then, we can talk about, waiving that or reducing that or figuring it out. But in my mind, it's trying to set up I would think of it more like the amount of money you would pay for a designer to like set up your site, right? And to do all those things. It's like a similar sort of fee as opposed to, it's not really a software fee, it's designer time, right?
Sure. Is that what you intend to, after you, let's say Moxie and Sound Advice is the beta, is that what you would intend for, clients 3 through 3,000?
Yes. Right. It has nothing, there is no, in this model, actually, and this is very important, right? In this model, there is no beta customer. We're just going live with our first 2 customers. But yeah, customers 3 through 1,000 would also have a setup fee in order for me to bring their existing clients onto the platform, to help them migrate data, to brand the portal, to brand the emails, set them up so that, when they go live, because, no one I'm going to be talking to is like going to be starting their bookkeeping practice when they come to me. When they come to me, they've already got a bookkeeping practice. So,
right.
There's a messaging with the clients, there's onboarding with the existing staff, the branding, the data loading, those are all the key things that need to be set up at the outset.
Right. What do you think how much time and effort do you think this setup takes?
So ideally, very little for me.
Is there any scale from you do it once, you could leverage? Like you do it for Sound Advice, you could leverage for the next?
I don't think so. Go ahead. It sounds like you're moving around an objection. Does it seem like too much money?
No. I'm thinking about it from 2 people's perspective, right? I don't typically, $5,000 isn't a small nut, but it's something that, I'm not 100% adverse to. But thinking about your, clients 3 through 3,000, most of them, Chris has his own independent bookkeeping business in addition to doing work for Sound Advice, right?
Yeah.
He is the profile of the person that you'd probably be targeting.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you, guys like Chris would never spend $5,000 to get anything up and going. That's like you're saying to them, I want you to give me, your firstborn.
Well,
bookkeepers are cheap. Bookkeepers are, by the nature, dealing with money, they are cheap son of a bitches, which is good. But they definitely...
Yeah, but they do. Bookkeepers do pay, while that's true, bookkeepers do pay designers to help them set up a website, right? So that they can acquire customers and have a professional, front to the business. Now, not all bookkeepers, right? And so I guess in my mind, it's if someone's going to pay, $5 to 10 grand to set up a, website and, all these different things, to me, I don't see it as that different, in terms of them being able to now suddenly have this, very professional platform. Now they can do chat with their clients. They've got recorded voice, logged emails, et cetera. But yeah, if you're just a single independent bookkeeper,
is there any way that you is there any way you could break this up over, what is it, $100 a month? That's 10. That's 5 years. So, or 4.5 years.
Well, let's separate. Because I'm not in the business of. I'm not in the business of gouging anyone, and I want to see this thing happen. And you know this, so I'm not telling you. I'm not showing my card.
But I'm also thinking. I guess I'm moved into Jiminy Cricket for you, because I'm telling you that what's a JUST for you is going to be you're going to run into major roadblocks with that number on the page. If you
totally. Yeah, and I'm comfortable with that. And I guess for me right now, right now I'm concerned with like, and I'll be very blunt about it. I want to make sure and Ian are set up on board successful. And then for me, it's going to be what are the next 4 customers need look like? We might discover that, for example, take your point. They do not want to spend any money up front, and therefore we can't charge a setup fee. We end up needing to just increase the monthly rate for other people, not for you. And, and we kind of take it from there. Maybe we do something where, if people sign up for X number of clients, it gets waived. I think the challenge we can't run into, just addressing this challenge, like taking the Chris example, I can't, if Chris were to sign up for this thing and he's one user, so it's $300 for him per month, I can't spend a month on Chris branding his customer portal and branding his emails, loading up clients. I can't spend a lot of time doing that if, he's just one guy. Now he's no longer a profitable customer. But maybe once we get to scale, we figure out smarter ways to do it. So I guess I don't want to over-engineer that part of it. I just want to make sure we've got something that makes sense for you and Ian, like immediately. And then I'm trying to
How
figure
big is her practice, by the way? Does she have multiple people working for her?
Yeah, she's got tons of people, and that's part of this whole idea of the white glove service. She'll have capacity at different points in time that she can sell into this system. So, if you, for example, go out and you just sell 30 clients, right? And you have them as active, as Sound Advice clients. They're running through the Sound Advice portal, but you don't have enough bookkeeper capacity to serve them. I can connect you through this platform to their people and have them help out, on the bookkeeping side, right?
Aren't I taking a huge leap that these people know what they're doing, and these people are going to have access to sensitive data?
Well, the short answer is you don't have to, right? I mean, the platform is meant to deliver against your bookkeeping practice. But if you got to a scale and you wanted to have someone else,
you've done a lot of over the years. You have had a lot of that. You've overcome that hurdle with a major assumption that the resources are going to be competent, the resources are going to be self-sufficient and trustworthy, and all those components that go with managing people, which is part of the reason why you don't want to be in the people business. I'm not. I hope the way I'm delivering this information isn't confrontational. It's more, it keeps coming back to, you think it's, my interpretation of what you keep saying is, oh, look, she's got excess capacity. How do I know if her people are any good? What if I want her people? If her people are looking at my client's books, how do I communicate that to my client? What about my concerns about her people now seeing my clients?
Totally. Yeah, and some of this stuff, it's good that we're having this chat. Some of this stuff is happening, right? My big focus has been on the tools, and, if there's a way, I guess I'll put it back to you this way. The origin of this idea, right, I probably presented it the wrong way. The origin of this idea was actually a comment you made. And when I had talked, was actually a comment that you had made when I had first mentioned Moxie to you. Your first question was like, it was one of enthusiasm. Like, oh my God, well, do they have, would they be interested in subcontracting? Would they be interested, do they have capacity? That was kind of the first thought you had. Now, I'm sure with that thought, you were already thinking, well, how do we manage confidentiality? How do we manage quality? How do we manage, where does this firewall get drawn, et cetera? And so all I'm playing back to you, or at least I thought, was that initial enthusiasm that you had for like, well, hey, if there are people in the system that can help, execute on tasks, then can help, do workflow, maybe that's useful. But to me, that's not the core of the thing. So I don't want it to be a distraction, ultimately. Because I think
what you're selling, and I don't want to seem, don't take this as a reductionist, but you're selling the glue and to be the conductor.
That's
you're
right.
Bringing it all together, and you're making sure that it all works. You're gluing it all together, and you're making sure that it works on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there are a lot of plates that are worthwhile to keep spinning that allow you to do what you need to do. I think the problem is, not everybody knows all these which plates to use, and I think I can help figure out the sort of the best ones. But more importantly, exactly what you're saying, it's the glue that holds them all together. It's what keeps the plates all spinning that I think is the tough part, particularly once you get past 20 or 30 clients.
Absolutely.
Well, let's look at it, because I think we've been talking about it generally, and I think this is the exciting part. What I don't know is, can you see everything, and is it the wrong scale because this is a giant laptop, or is there some way I should just zoom into just this? Can you see the web browser?
I can see the web browser, yeah.
Okay, that's clear. Okay. Cool. So these are the ActiveSell bookkeeper tools. And as we've mentioned, the idea of these CFO tools, the planning stuff, the former, ActiveSell products, eventually comes out as CFO tools. But right now, this is the key thing. So ActiveSell bookkeeper tools, and you see I got this little handsome Jason Hill up here, huh? So the idea is, you've got this administrative, interface to go to, starting with the most basic stuff, just like accounts. You've got, your company details, and your billing gets managed through here, including anything.
Am I looking at this as a Sound Advice bookkeeper, or am I looking at this as a client?
You're looking at this as Jason Hill, the administrator for Sound Advice, who sells bookkeeping to these 4 clients.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. So, and these are in order by how, generally would use them on an ongoing basis. But really, a good place to start would be Access, right? So as you add members to your team, you'll have them available to your other clients. So you want to invite a new team member, boom, you add Ruby and her email, add her into the system. As you start to scale out, again, a year from now, this table has maybe 8 to 10 people in it. I think what we need to figure out, you, me, and Ian, is, who all has access to the bookkeeper tools and has access to which parts of it. But I think that's more of a discussion. So let's table that, today, in terms of who has visibility to what, and just know that we'll figure out what the right answer is. And I'll show you a couple places where I've hidden some things to give you that idea. But you're going to maintain your list of team members who have access to the system, right? And then as you go, boom, you've got this activity log, which is system generated. There are no buttons, there's no input, but it will tell you, as things go on, hey, listen, I created this task from this recipe, and this link will link out to Zendesk, and this link will link to your recipe, or I added this user to Dropbox, or, hey, you added Ruby to your team members. Here you've got this, constant log of all the actions that the platform takes on your behalf, so that you know exactly what's going on, right? And most of these actions will be kicked off via an API. They'll be, immediately. So as soon as they're added to this list, they'll be marked pending. In some cases, if it's not something we can automate, it'll create a task in the system on our end to be done manually, and it'll be marked pending until it's completed.
Sure.
Right? So here, my goal here, this is like the holy grail in my mind, is like, here it is, a canonical list of like all the actions that the system has to take on behalf of you in order to automate your business and keep you rocking. So then you get your client.
I'm sorry, just make sure I'm on the same page. This is a skin. The ActiveSell portal is a skin that is going to, behind this UI, it's all the connectivity that you've done.
That's right. So you can manage, you'll actually manage, and I'll step you through this, you will actually manage your resources and recipes right here. So Let's start with resources, then we'll show you what it looks like for an individual client. So this is actually your resource. So here's this white glove service, and I'm not sure exactly, how we manage this, but if you started pushing tasks to ActiveSell's remote executive assistants, you might discover that they're great at a certain subset of tasks that you can just push them, like lead gen or whatever, and right through the system, you could scale your access to these guys. I don't think you'd want a CFO for your own company. So some of this is just like throwing ideas around. But the idea is that you should be able to manage in one place and then apply changes, your own resources that your firm uses. Same thing here, we'll maintain these add-ons that the system is capable of putting in. Some of them could be as simple as like, we don't have any integration with them at all, but there's a link there. We'll probably add like the logos for these services, et cetera. But, here is, Basecamp, and then here is, your link to Sound Advice Basecamp site, which has all the information for online collaboration that, you guys need for the tasks that you guys get done. Now, this is, again, for your own firm, not for your clients. But we might figure out that, actually, Right Signature is set up so that if you pay for it, centrally, all your clients can access it. And then when we get to the client's page, it'll just show that resource and say included. Maybe we include it or we don't include it, on a client-by-client basis. But, this is kind of one interface. This is exactly what you just said about skin. This interface right here is a skin or just a front end for all the connectivity that we can manage. And the idea would be if we add tool that ActiveSell knows about, it should know how to add all of your users to that tool, right? Or if there are any other connections that need to take place, like between Basecamp and Zendesk, right? Not just having us as the hub, but any of those other connections that need to take place, it will know how to wire those all up and take care of that, managed through this interface, right?
Uh-huh.
So then there are our recipes concept, right? And this is taken quite literally from the Betty Crocker terminology, right? And so the idea is, you're going to have client recipes, but here are yours. You're going to have your own forecast for videos. Maybe that gets done quarterly on the first of the month. Tag it active or inactive in terms of, its frequency. Or, if this just needs to get done right now, you launch now. Let me show you one so that it makes more sense. So here is a recipe, right? And so you've got these different tasks you can add. They are draggable, in terms of their order. You could add a new task. And when you click on a task, we can have all the information that goes into a Zendesk task, we can push here so that whenever it gets pushed out, if you were to launch
numbers, is that anticipated amount of time, or is that weighted priority?
We could do either. 20, I was just playing around with ideas. I think it's best. My instinct is to put an estimate in terms of number of minutes to execute, just like a time estimate. But I'm not sure if that's useful. So really, it's just kind of collaboration with you guys. But anything, you can add fields to Zendesk, and so if there's anything that we think we need to do, we can do that. Like that's the easy part, actually, right? So if there's information we want to capture about each task, one thing I did, you see the avatar, and then it's like the signs. And so, you'll have your team members here, and you'll be able to have an automatic, assignment. So then when it goes through, it's automatically assigned to the right person. Even if it's the assistant pool. The assistant pool is a resource that you could assign a task to if you've got virtual assistants. So it sits on a schedule. So if this needs to be done, some people want daily updates, right? And that's very expensive to manage internally, but our guys can go in, and if it's just a matter of processing the bills.com inbox and coding new transactions, but no reconciling or checking the inbox, this is actually a good example, right? So these are some basic things. This could take, I'll throw out the just number, right? It could take just 20 minutes unless things are hairy, and they might want that daily or they might want it weekly, and when it's on, it just runs. But if you want to launch it now, boom, you click launch now, and the system will push these 6 tasks into Zendesk, sign them appropriately. You know, if you use Harvest, it will create, you know, under your project, you know, they've got tasks in Harvest, the timekeeping system. You know, it can automatically create tasks for all the items that are not on there yet. You know, all these things are all set up that way. And so it handles that automatically, and then we'll push those 6 tasks into 6 new rows in the activity list. So, you know, in my view, you know, you've got, for most of your clients, I imagine you've got to review and reconcile, you know, monthly tasks. It gets done on the 5th of the month, and boom, you set that on autopilot. They might want to touch up transactions and bills weekly, and then they might have a couple other recipes that are, you know, something you do quarterly or annually. This gives you the flexibility to like define all these things and work on them with your clients. But also now you got this window so you can do it for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So, you know, the client interface is pretty simple. So if you were to add a new client, you know, you put in client name, and then, you know, we'll specify ahead of time, you know, kind of what the standard services set up are. Maybe for every client you set up, you know, you want it to have its own Dropbox folder. Maybe specifically you want like a Dropbox folder where you can put all of your files that are not client-facing, you know, in one folder, and then a subfolder that is client-facing. You know, however we want this set up for every single client. Boom, you create a new client, adds those folders in Dropbox, creates a Basecamp site for them, creates a Bill.com site, you know, site for them. Boom, boom, boom. All those accounts are set up. Users are added, and as users get added, they get added to all these services. Now, when you're logged in, I'm sorry, click very quickly. So when you click on Sterling Cooper, now you see. Now I'm looking at Sterling Cooper, one of your clients, right? Anand or you know, any of your clients. You can always go back to you, but now you're seeing Sterling Cooper's recipes, right? Those would be totally different. You can bring them over from your standard list. But now, you know, you can work, and I think we need to figure out, like, do we want your clients to be able to access a stream like this? Then if so, do we want that to be branded?
Wait, do we want the clients to access what?
This screen that we're looking at right now. Like, should they be able to view their recipes and launch a recipe, mark it active, add a recipe, right? Like, is this something that only Leo sees on behalf of his client, or something that Leo's clients actually log on to and view? You know, I think that's, you know, open for debate. You know, I think it's you know, for me, it's, we can figure it out. Now, under resources, you see I hid, just as an example, when you're looking at Sterling Cooper's resources, they don't have access to ActiveSell's white glove bookkeepers. There's 2 rows that I hid that when you were in this view, you know, you have access to. It's not that specific example that matters. The point is that, you know, we can choose to display or hide, you know, any of the various resources or parts of this that should be available only to you as a bookkeeper versus your clients. You know, similarly for access, here you've got, you know, the actual Sterling Cooper team, and they might add their own accountant who's not, you know, working at Sterling Cooper, but, you know, this is their team versus Sound Advice team access. So this is like, you know, which bookkeepers. Now, you know, Ian has, you know, 15, 20 bookkeepers. And so for her, this is a really important thing where, you know, she keeps a pretty tight, you know, grip on which of her bookkeepers have access to which clients. And it is not the case that, you know, all of her bookkeepers can just like see, you know, the Dropbox files for any of their clients. It's not like one globally managed state. So it's a huge nightmare. And ultimately, this is the kind of security that you want to be able to talk about, I would think, you know, as you're selling. To be able to say, listen, only these guys have access to your data, people that we've handpicked from our teams that go on to this platform. Right? So this is it. I mean, that's really the big idea. You know, it's a simple app by design. It's designed to have a place where you can manage your team and your resources and recipes that impact your business and log all of your activity, and then, you know, maintain a client list. And for each client, you know, what are their recipes, what are their tasks, what are their resources, et cetera. all that activity gets monitored, all the access gets managed, and that's it. Now I want to show you
right now what you're showing me is basically a wireframe mock-up.
Well, it's certainly a bit more of a wireframe mock-up. I mean,
I'm sorry, maybe I'm not using. You've built out the functionality on your local machine. It's not built out yet.
Right. That's right. Yeah, it's just for demonstrating purposes. Now, most for all of this code actually gets used, so it's actually not a throwaway. But it's a clickable this is a live website. You know, I could put this clickable demo on so you could access it. You know, it doesn't just run locally.
Sure. Wow. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it looks awesome. The initial recommendation that I would add, you remember how you toggle back and forth between Sound Advice and Sterling?
Yeah.
So I would make the background screen a different color.
So that you know you're on a client?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a very easy.
Something to do. You know, each client would randomly get assigned a color. So, you know, you might only have 12 colors in the color palette, but that way you know you're on a different. I started doing that for Trello boards because otherwise, if it all looks very similar, then you can get confused on which board you're on.
Yeah.
But
yeah, very doable.
And when you're talking about going back to your list, the bookkeeper master to-do list, I would imagine that list. Can you pull that up?
Which list? The actual list of people or the activities?
The activity list.
Yeah. Of here's what's happened, and it's longer here. Yeah.
Right. So this list, this could be, for example, Leo and this could be action items for 3 different clients, right?
Well, this wouldn't be how he. This would not be how he. I want to show you the Zendesk stuff because this would not be how he accesses his to-dos. It would just be like an audit log.
For me, the administrator.
Yeah, it's just an audit log, and what we'll add, of course, is like filters by type or date range or search.
So he is the individual. He is the doer would be going through the Zendesk interface.
Right, and that's what I want to show you next because I want to show you. You know, this on its own is not that impressive, or I mean, there's some things I really like about it, but it is only useful insofar as it is the glue between all the other, services that you use, right? And so this is very important. So I'm going to show you 2 things, and there's not a lot of data in it because it's just a mock-up, right? But you basically will have, a couple things at your disposal. You'll have a help center, which is what you're seeing right here. Now I'm logged on as an administrator, so I can go in and edit some of these. But you can actually have, a list of all the different tasks that your guys, things that your people can do, announcements about your company, FAQ. This is a good content place for you to develop, content that your customers can see. But then more importantly, if I sign out and sign in as, I should have a customer version of it on my Profitably. The only thing I didn't check this morning. And should have. Okay, cool. So, right. And this is the super lightweight version of this. You will want to have, we'll have a much more robust version of this. But here's an example of a form where they could submit a request. We wouldn't call it submit a request. Well, maybe submit a request is fine, but you might have a couple different forms where they can ask a question or submit a request or do different things that if they want to just push a task into the system, they can do it from their customer portal and they can see their available tasks. Now, again, this is with no design built into it whatsoever. You would have your branding, and we can make it look, less like a giant white page. But, you can have ideas that they're following, questions that they're following on the help center, but most importantly, here are the outstanding requests. So status, open, solved, waiting your reply is a big one. So, Chris could have a question, he adds it to the system, marks awaiting your reply. I then get an email that says, oh my God, this thing, I need your question, and right here it'll say awaiting your reply. As opposed to, I send them an email or I texted you or whatever. This is much more trackable. And then in here, you can start to access all of the different tasks. So, hey, haven't you checked this thing? Or hey, look out for this thing, or drop a file in here. We'll have more fields other than status and priorities. So all the tasks that sit in the system will have a customer portal view. There will be a way that the customer can access all of their outstanding requests, ask questions, access content, etc., and all of that will be branded. There will be a chat, voice capability, chat capability. All those things are built into the Zendesk platform. It's not stuff I can do. It's pretty strong.
Right.
And on the agent side, go ahead.
In terms of customers getting their requests into Zendesk, I know Zendesk has an app on both the iPhone and the Android. What would be the best way for them to? Do they have customer portal access? I
want to make sure I understand your question. The Zendesk apps for iPad, iPhone, Android, all this stuff, those would be for your team, right? So they can access. Because they provide access to this interface that I'm showing you right now, to the screen right now. This shows. You can change the assignee of a task. You can start CCing someone in. You can change all these fields we can add, right? And here's harvest integration.
But I guess, John Smith, the client, has a new activity. What's the fastest, and he's on the go, what's the fastest way for him to get that activity into Zendesk?
Anything. So he'll have an email where he can email. If I'm on the go and I want to make sure something doesn't get lost, boom, I pop my bookkeeping inbox an email, and it gets created as a ticket. And then when I come back to the customer portal, later when I'm not on the go, my request from the email will show my email subject here. When I click on it, it will show the email body as the description under the task. It will show it as assigned to my bookkeeper. It will show a status of open, and last activity was earlier today.
Got it. So we're only paying for Leo, Chris, and Ruby for Zendesk via ActiveSell. If we have 100 clients that sit behind them, as call them clients or customers, those customers would be able to access Zendesk without paying for it.
That's right. Absolutely right. And they would access it through the customer portal. In fact, Zendesk talks about the 8 channels. There are 8 channels that a customer can go through, and that includes Facebook page, Twitter. You can have it set up so that if someone tweets, you can have one just general Twitter account, or you could have a bunch of them that have different rules associated with them. And when a tweet comes in, it gets a ticket created, or when your Twitter account, if you favorite tweet, it creates a ticket. Or, people have a Zendesk managed and therefore ActiveSell managed support phone number. And they can dial into that phone number, and if no one's on call to answer the phone, they can leave a voicemail. That voicemail is recorded, logged as a ticket. They go through the Facebook page, they go through the customer portal, and there are forms on the customer portal where they can submit information, questions, tasks, problems. They can do it via email. So yeah, there are a lot of different channels where your customers, basically you will want, just like Zendesk provides this whole customer communication interface for the support desks for software products, you will have all the tools that Zendesk provides interacting and managing interactions with your clients, but not for support, for bookkeeping.
Got it. And what about, so are you building all your own glue, or are you leveraging like Zapier or IFTT, if this then that?
Yeah, those. I mean, what I've done with Zapier so far, I have tested some of the connections that I want done, and just to make sure that, hey, can you create a Zendesk, organization using their API correctly? It seems like those tools give you, 20% of what you need, or in some cases 80%, in some cases 100, but in a lot of cases, not quite enough. And the API stuff, it's very different than working with QuickBooks. So there will be some things I can probably do with Zapier. I don't even know how to pronounce that, but a lot of it I'll just custom code because those are pretty simple and straightforward, and I want to be able to do exactly what I want.
Right. No, I was just because I was looking at if this then that rules last night for creating, because what you've created or what you're proposing here, I've done a good portion of it for recruiting. If I showed you my recruiting model, you'd say, holy shit, there's a lot of carryovers in what I've done to help with recruiting. Which,
absolutely right. Yeah, because you did show me back in the day, like, hey, when a Salesforce, record is created, this, that, and the other thing happens. Right, and that's exactly what we're talking about, right? Just trying to maintain and manage all of those interactions, and some of them do not exist outside of the ActiveSell system. Like this whole recipes concept, for me is like one of the big things of, like we need to have a set of tasks that we can maintain that get pushed on a recurring schedule. Or in the case of Ian, she just wants one, even if it's not on a regular schedule. It's like as soon as one task is solved, she wants another one of the same type pushed back into the system to be done a month from now. Or if it doesn't get done a month from now, it gets done 2 months from now. It doesn't matter.
Whatever the recurring frequency is, yeah.
Right, and then whenever they get to it, they get to it. When they finish it, it'll automatically push a new one in. These are the types of things. Yeah, ultimately, I don't want to oversell this. Basically, we're doing what you're describing for what you've set up for your recruiting system. Basically, this is not that different from if you just hired me personally to go set that all up for you in a similar vein for your operations. It's not that dissimilar. But I think as things scale, I think we're going to end up discovering a lot of things that are very interesting. There will be, I think, some pooled resources. There will be tasks that the white glove service pool can do that are not that don't require massive security, et cetera. I think there will be things that we learn as we go that will make this, a lot more awesome than, just setting it all up on it's this then that. But
right,
at its basis, that's what it is.
What did David say about this?
I mean, he's excited. I mean, I think what we want to figure out is, is this a real pain point? Does this have value for people? But he's excited that, at least based on the conversations with Ian, it does. I'm eager to hear right now, from you if this sounds good for you also. But also, here we have, with the ActiveSell stuff, we've been working on it for a long time, and it's very difficult to get to a point where we've got, a fully functioning demo because of all the problems. And, here we are a couple days in on this new concept, and we have a fully functioning demo. Obviously it needs a back end, but the point is, that's a matter of days. And so I think he's also excited that this is something that it's a problem we know really well. Got some customers that understand the problem really well. It's something we can really iterate on quickly and build quickly, which I'm excited about.
So what would the midterm to long term be for David and for this? It would be to pivot ActiveSell to become this new platform, and the original product would be eventually become part of that. Hopefully, become part of that.
Yeah, in the midterm, I could see if we step back, and this is always dangerous because you never know. But if I were to step back and look, a year out, 2 years out, I think that the active cell virtual office concept has teeth. I think there's a lot that we can do to create, branded, sites for. So the way that the Zendesk site works is it's a hub and spoke model, right? So there are central resources, but then each of my clients get their own little mini site, right, with your branding and your content.
Right.
But you be able to assign tasks to the centralized resources, that I maintain. And to me, that's like a very, very powerful thing. And I love the idea of being able to wrap these services, provide a platform for everything that goes on in an office, right? Like people should be able to let their office, be managed from a tool standpoint by this platform. But oh, by the way, because we're dealing with content, these bookkeeper tools or virtual office tools are very useful. But we also have all this content. So it's a natural next step for me to be able to just actually plug in the content.
Who does this compete against?
Sorry?
Who do you feel this platform competes against?
Well, I think if we're talking in the short term, the immediate term, this product offering we're discussing today, I think it largely competes against, like, the 99% competition is the manual approach of just like manually doing this stuff for yourself the hard way and not scaling, right?
You don't think that there's established competition in the market for this kind of Maestro glue? I like that.
Not really. I think if you had to put if you had to name someone, sure, the Zapier and if this and that, these kinds of services that help automate the APIs, are, yes, that's a competition. For people who are looking for a competitor, that's a competition. I don't think that's the problem. I don't think those are the guys I need to worry about. We're selling to bookkeepers. We're not selling to software engineers.
Right.
And while you have, you're kind of, I would characterize you as way at one end of the spectrum in terms of, early evangelist or technologist.
Yeah, I'm an outlier. I know that.
Right, you're an outlier in terms of being able to do some of this yourself. I think for most people, they want the benefits of this. They have no interest in going to Zapier and setting up a Zap. What the hell is Zap? And if you're a software engineer, go ahead.
Yeah, what about more in the space like Indinero or Xero or something like that?
Yeah, not really. Sort of, sure. In the case of Indinero, she actually wants to be your accountant. She actually wants to be your bookkeeper. And therefore, she is your competitor, first and foremost. If she's got a second competitor, it's QuickBooks, because she wants to be your accountant and she wants to be your accounting software. So, does she compete with me? Not really. I sort of feel like both in the CFO tool space and in the virtual office space, in all of these spaces, this is a huge unmet need. It's just kind of a tricky problem. And so I'm less worried about who's competing in it. I'm more worried about making sure that we deliver something very, very valuable, and then I think we can figure it out.
Are you able to get VAR pricing on these components, or are you buying great value?
Not day one. Yes, day two. Right. So I talked to a couple people, just anecdotally about it because I've got relationships, and yes, a lot of it seems like the going rate for VAR pricing is somewhere around like 50 licenses. So if I were to put Bill.com in at 50 places, not meaning Jason and Ian, if I were to put Bill.com in at 25 of your clients, 25 of her clients, then yeah, I have a very real case for getting a lower price.
Right, you just become another sales channel for them, and it's
right. Oh, that's absolutely right. And the good news is it's a high value sales channel because not only am I bringing these services into these clients, but also I'm going through the process of connecting them and integrating them all, which was what drives so much stickiness for them, right? These isolated tools churn faster.
You don't cost a thing up front.
I don't cost a thing up front in terms of
their internal sales and marketing.
For them. No, absolutely right. Right. And the thing is, I remember reaching out to the CEO of Xero at a conference. It was a friend of one of his underlings that was there at the conference, and he introduced us. And he's a nice dude, this Rob Drury or whatever his name is. He's a good dude. But when I told him we were integrating with this service, he blew me off like I've never been blown off. And I thought it was hilarious. He actually did it in a real cheerful way. It's just dude, we got an API, integrate and then come talk to me. And it was very kind of funny about it, but the thing is these guys, I'm sure they deal with all these jokers that have these big plans and want to talk to them and put a strategic plan in place or all these different things and never end up pulling the trigger. I can kind of pull the trigger myself on my own without even talking to them. I might go to them and say, hey guys, I've got 100 of my end clients, using your platform. Let's talk about ways to improve the integration. Let's talk about ways that I can get better pricing. Let's talk, right? I can get out there ahead of time.
Sure.
Yeah.
And by the way, did you know Xero just came out with payrolling?
It did. I saw that, yeah. And they changed their price plans. It looked like I got an email today about price plans.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. So that hasn't come up yet. Ian is real big on Xero. I know you're not as wild about Xero. She's an enormous fan, and she's got a couple people that are now getting started on Wave. Well, previously I was kind of having to decide the level of effort to work with varying accounting platforms in terms of the integration level of effort and API readiness. In this case, that's a zero factor. I can work with anyone regardless of what accounting platform they use. Because I'm working with you and you're working with them, whatever accounting platform they use. I don't need to be able to pull all of your clients' data in order for this to work for one of your clients. I just need to be able to manage the services they use that do use an API. And to me, that's a very useful, even if you have a client that uses no connected services whatsoever, the very base level of, and they use QuickBooks Desktop, and they don't use Dropbox, and they don't use Basecamp, and they have you do their stuff on site. Even in that extreme situation, you still could create a set of recipes. There's no secure data in there, right? They create a set of recipes, push that data into Zendesk, and use Zendesk for task management with no connected services. Right? It eliminates a lot of barriers.
Where are the recipes getting created again?
The recipes get created in ActiveCell Bookkeeper Tools.
No. I'm sorry. You said they get pushed to Zendesk, but they were created in Basecamp?
No. So the recipes, do you still have I went for a walk. Do you still have the join.me live?
Yep.
You're seeing what I'm seeing? So
yep.
Create a recipe, and you're managing this recipe, which is just, a recipe is as you're seeing right here, a recipe is just a list of tasks and how often, whether it's on or off, etc. This is what I'm calling a recipe, right? And so the recipe is actually created in the ActiveCell tool and maintained in the ActiveCell tools. And so that over time, the recipes get more and more accurate. They evolve as the bookkeeping process evolves for each and every client, fully customized to each of your clients. And then, in this case, let's say it's not daily, but rather weekly, right? Very few of these are or as needed, right? But if this is weekly, this little touch-up activity, then every week on Monday, the ActiveCell system will use the Zendesk API to create these 6 tasks, assign them to the right people, add the descriptions, all the things that you would expect, right?
Yep.
I don't know if that was your question. Was that your question, or?
No, so they're created here.
Yeah. The recipes are created and maintained in the Bookkeeper tools. And then the individual tasks are not managed. The recipes for the tasks are like your recipe book, right? But the actual tasks, when a task is created, when it's instantiated to be completed, it is created in Zendesk using this recipe as a template. And then it's tracked in Zendesk.
So if a client wants a new reoccurring activity, they would create that in Zendesk. And what happens here?
No. So if they want a recurring let me describe this better. If they just want a one-off activity, meaning they have a question or a task or a problem.
Let's say the client buys a new automobile and they want that to be set up as a reoccurring payment or something like that.
Okay.
Well, that's a reoccurring payment. They could set it up once and then be done with it. A reoccurring task. They need.
Yeah. Well, let's take those two examples separately because there's a different answer, right? So let's say they've got a question. If they go to a question, they go to the Zendesk customer portal, and they can push the question in there, or they can email, or they can, any of those channels, right? And if they have a task, they just need this one task done, they can email or they can go to the customer portal, and boom. If they want to change, if they either have a totally new thing that they want to be done on a recurring basis, a new recipe, or if they want to go in and change their existing recipes because the process has changed. Now we no longer use Bill.com, right? I'm circling on the screen right now. I'm circling processbill.com.
Yep.
Let's say that needs to go away because we don't use Bill.com anymore, and it's part of our weekly, recipe, the weekly touch-up. Like, I don't want it to be anymore. That change happens in ActiveSell because
so this goes back to that. I guess my confusion was the question that you brought up initially was, do clients have access to this?
Yes. Or do they just tell Leo to update the recipe? Personally, well, what do you think? I don't know.
I think you know what I think. I think clients need to see what's they need to have access to this so they can see everything that's there, because if John Smith tells Leo something could get lost in translation.
And they don't want to feel like they need to go to Chris or Leo. They want to feel like they're in control of the process.
Correct.
And there's no better way to have control.
And some clients won't want this, and they'll say, "Hey, do it for me." But to give them the option of it is powerful.
Well, and at a minimum, let's say they don't want to touch it. At a minimum, Chris is there in person with them, and he said, "Listen, you gave me all this feedback about what you want me to do," just like he does with the Google spreadsheet right now. You told me what you want, and I captured it as these 4 recipes. Let's review each of these recipes. Is this what you want me to do every week? Is this what you want me to do every month? And they can just look at it, and then there's a one-to-one connection. Like, there's just no gray area anymore. There's a one-to-one connection between, I said this is what I want every week. Next week, I'm going to see these 6 tasks show up in the queue in Zendesk as a client, right? And there's going to be no debate, and so if I were a user, I would just want to make sure those are right, and then those are the things that are going to get done, clockwork. So yeah, I think you're right. I think we need to figure out the smart way to surface, some of these tools to the end users. We'll need to be able to do that so they can edit it.
Right. And it also has to be all centralized, right? You don't want them to have to go to 4 different places.
Right.
So
and this is something.
Zendesk customer portal, this customer portal.
Yeah, and the way that I want to handle that, even if it's only just the header looking the same, is see how this bookkeeper tool shows tools and add-ons, docs, and then your log in, log out. I want docs to take you here. Docs is the wrong word. We'll say, something to make it clear. And then the same header will show up here where they can go back to the tools. We'll figure out what the right
basically what you would do is you'd go in and you would take that toolbar and you'd put it across the different websites, so the user experience, unless they're paying attention to the URL, they're not going to know whether they're on the ActiveSell portal or they're on the Zendesk portal.
That's right, and we'll put the same footer. I'm imagining we put the same footer and the same header. By the way, we're going to be able to mask all these URLs, so they'll actually all have the same URL also. So maybe it'll be tools.soundadvice.com and addons.soundadvice.com and customerportal.soundadvice.com. Whatever we need to do from a URL standpoint, we'll make that so the URLs will be relatively consistent. The header and footer will be consistent. We're using the same fonts across both, and so the fonts will be consistent. These are the things that I think can create a branded user experience. This is also, by the way, why until we figure out a smarter way to do that, that's why we're charging the setup fee, because we're talking about, all this level of integration, not just bringing your client data in. It's really setting up your practice management, and even on your marketing site, my view would be, you would want similar, header potentially on the marketing site, or at least a client login button in the upper right that brings a client into this experience. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah. This is kick-ass.
Awesome, man. So then I've been talking your ear off tirelessly for 90 minutes, and Allie, I apologize if you're watching this. You're now winded, but I think a very important thing, for me and for David, and it's not something that necessarily needs to be decided today, of course. There's a lot to absorb and marinate on, but we need to figure out, David and I, if this is the right direction. I was able to mock this up in a couple of days, but obviously the remaining steps in here are a lot heavier and a lot, all focus would need to turn to this in order for this to make sense. And so, what I'm hoping to do, as I've been saying all along, is, I think the first two clients who naturally make sense for this are you and Ian. I think a reasonable rollout time frame, if it works with you guys, everyone's got 1099s and busy end-of-year stuff in January, but I can spend that time building out these sites, doing the customization, et cetera, and getting this thing ready so that we could launch it for you and for Ian, February 1st, meaning your portal's live, your data's in there, your clients are able to use it, Chris and Leo know what they're doing, Ruby knows what they're doing, you know how to go in and add things. Even if future integrations come down the road in terms of what gets automated, what gets faster and smarter, a working version of this for February 1st. Is that something you would even consider?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And then I guess the only remaining question is just pricing. I mean, is the pricing in the ballpark for you that if we did basically $5,000 in order to, from that, we'll see what my 3,000th client gets in terms of personal attention, but in my case, quite a bit of personal attention in terms of making sure the emails and the site and everything are consistent and all set up, and the DNS and the URLs and all those things managed. So that basically for January, and then whatever that works out to be. Now I've walked away from my computer again. 300 times, be you, Chris, Leo, I guess Ruby. Anyone else?
No, just the four of us right now.
Yeah. So, just for the time being, the four of you guys, I mean, I think all in, forgive my barbaric math, but, between the $5,000 setup and then, 12 months at 3 times, 300 or whatever, it works out to, 18, 20 grand, something like that. And, I realize that's a big slug of cash to put out, but, for building out, what I think is going to be a pretty, kick-ass practice management system, to me that actually sounds okay. I mean, does that sound like something you would be able to, move forward with, or is it something, it's not even something you have to decide today, but I just don't know if I'm even in the ballpark.
I think it's something that I can definitely talk to Allie about, and we can get back to you on.
Okay.
I know that, given our year-end we do a lot year end. We got about $100,000 going out in the next 3.5 weeks. Just so things always run down to the wire for us. What, we might have to talk about how that number could get, if we were going to move forward, how it would get be paid, make it manageable for both parties.
Yeah, and I'm open, and I'm, I think right now you're a sales guy, so you recognize the sales levers, even when you're being sold to. For me, it's the commitment is the big thing, to a degree more so than the cash. I want to make sure that this is something that's valuable, that you guys care about, and that the pricing is in the right place, et cetera. If we need to adjust the timing of the payments or whatever, I'm sure we can work something out. But, I think what I'm looking for, putting it bluntly, I think I did already, but, crystal clear, I'm really looking for commitments from you and from Ian, ideally, ideally by the end of the month, so that sets me up. I can go to Jason and say, hey, this thing's real, this new concept, we should keep the CFO tools on the back burner. We should put all of our energy and attention into this. Look, I've got Ian and Jason signed up. We're going to get them started, and I think, being able to put a firm chalk mark on the wall would be, huge for us. So that's where I am with it anyway.
Okay. All right. Then let me do this. Let me talk to Allie, and I'll probably get back to you. Today's what, Wednesday?
Yeah.
Let's follow up beginning of next week.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm down in Miami till Monday for the Patriots game. So.
Oh wow! Oh, who are you going with?
It's my annual mandate with my best man from my wedding, this guy Joe. He, our best friends. We love each other just to death. So once a year we have our little man weekend where we go down somewhere and drink too much and complain about everything we actually love about our lives, and
that sounds like a lot of fun.
And yeah, it's a lot of fun. And last year we went down to DC and saw Patriots Redskins. We just loved having the game on Sunday. So this time it's Miami, and we'll enjoy some food down there and the game on Sunday, and I'll come back a new man.
Awesome.
Hopefully my family will still be here.
Exactly. All right, yeah, if you can, also, can you send me that deck so I can take a look at it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll send you the deck, and then I will.
Is there any way you can put this up on the web and give me access so I can play and walk through it?
Yes. Yes, I can.
That would be great, because then I can also marinate in it and come back with some thoughts.
Yeah. So I'll send you the deck. I'll send you a link to the clickable demo, and I will include, they're kind of mentioned in the deck, but I'll itemize some of the services that I think, I would take a hard look at the Zendesk multi-brand edition, because that's really, other than the bookkeeper tools itself that I'm writing, Zendesk multi-brand is really, the other thing we're leaning on very heavily. The rest of it all revolves around that. You saw in the demo, it plugs into Harvest, it plugs into, plugs into everything. So we'll make sure everything is all connected.
I'm on Zendesk now. I see Starter, Regular, Plus, Enterprise, and Enterprise Elite. I don't see multi-brand.
Whichever one it is, the Enterprise.
Now, do you have any issues with building? I mean, you built the ActiveSell product based off of someone else's platform, and the original product off of someone else's APIs, and the business essentially hit a stone wall when QuickBooks Intuit changed how they do things. I mean, is there concern with this as well?
Yeah, I'm not going to say there's no concern. I think what we weren't able to do. Bottom line is, there's a risk, and continuing to work with APIs, that's a risk. What we were never able to do with ActiveSell was pull the information we needed from QuickBooks and only using that information build and deliver everything that we need, and from a demo standpoint or from a product standpoint, just deliver it all, just manually pulling this information out of the APIs. And this was my fault, this is an important lesson. But, if I were to do the QuickBooks thing over again, I'd probably end up where Funding Gates is, they would just do AR, because you can query the API and make sure that everything you need for your product is available in the API and easy to get to. And we were never able to do that. For the people that were on QuickBooks Desktop, we could get to enough information, but no one could get Sync Manager working. And then now they've shut off QuickBooks Desktop. We were never able to get the information we needed from QuickBooks Online. That's a problem. Now, in the case of Zendesk, I've already gone into the Zendesk API and created a task. I've created an organization. I have done all the things that my product promises to do. I've done with the Zendesk API, tested it, and it works. So do I feel that there's a risk that down the road they'll change the API? Sure. But I think it's much more stable. Well, it's not that I think. It is orders of magnitude more stable than the QuickBooks stuff currently. Are there
API call limits that you'd have to worry about?
Nope. I mean, not that we need to worry about, right? Just the volume of the requests that we're making. The API limits are things like when people are pulling, hundreds of thousands of records and they're doing it in real time. Those kinds of API limits. Xero is a great example, right? So if you're pulling transaction level detail out of Xero, and someone has 100,000 transactions going back 5 years, you run into problems. But pushing 6 tasks at a time or adding a user, these are not limiting tasks.
Right. Okay. And have you had any conversation with Xero about, what kind of commitment they? I mean, Zendesk. You look who else is using Zendesk and how they're integrating it. So you feel pretty confident in it. But have you had any conversation with anybody at Zendesk? Hey, I'm looking to buy this. What kind of assurances can you give me, or what can you speak to in terms of APIs if I'm going to spend time, money, and energy, effort integrating this with other?
I did, yes. And so I've got a conversation started with a couple people at Zendesk at different levels. Their responses weren't too different from what guy from Xero told me, which is, yes, we've got it. It's all there. It's all ready. Like, go build it, and then let's talk. I think, and I don't necessarily disagree, there's just, on paper, everything we need to do is possible. The only thing, the only challenges you run into are when you get into the details, and you actually go and build a thing. That's when you discover all the surprises and the challenges, and there will be surprises and challenges. But, those are the things you can surface in these conversations ahead of time. And I think to catch it from a totally different direction, you're talking to someone who's just spent 4 years agonizing over an API. There's no one in the universe more sensitive than I am to this. So if I sound blasé, believe me, I could never see the QuickBooks API ever again, and I'd be just fine. So for me, in my position, to be going down this road, I'm not a masochist. I definitely, I'm taking a hard look at it.
In addition to selling bookkeepers to bookkeepers, you also see this being sold to other parties?
I don't know. I really don't know. I could see it being sold directly to end users, and if people don't need any, people that are doing the bookkeeping themselves, could they just log on to this and use it for their own management? But then it seems like overkill, and again, we'd have to set them up. So, end users are probably too small.
I think going back to what you were saying before about the $5,000, you could pay to have it branded, right? If you're a bookkeeper and you want to create a customer experience. But if you're an accountant or an office manager that does this, and you just want centralization, you don't care whether it says Zendesk or, Joe's Pizza Shop.
Yeah. again, and I don't want to sound blasé about it, but it just, we just don't know right now. And I, for the last 4 years, have spent, I'm trying to be more disciplined is what you're witnessing right now. I spent the last 4 years with so many different strategic ideas and so many different channels and so many different concepts and so many different ways that this could morph in the future, and planning in advance, sort of like pre-optimizing for all the different directions that we could go. Like, those have taught me some very tough lessons, and
All right, so right now you're just focusing on a specific client base.
Two specific clients, like that specific, and I feel like if I can,
right,
if I can blow your mind,
the two specific clients are Sound Advice and Moxie.
right, and if I can blow your mind and blow Ian's mind, I believe that, we're going to have, a product. We're going to have a product at that point that, is ready to go for the next 10 bookkeepers, and then we'll solve those problems.
Last question. What did David have to say when you told him my response to ActiveSell, the ActiveSell offer?
He and I haven't talked about it in length, and that's a conversation that still needs to be had. He believed, initially that, he was sort of like hey, we'll see, kind of like I was, we just don't have a lot of equity to give, we don't have a lot of cash to give, and so that could be a tall order, and so I have to talk with him at length about it. But I imagine he's going to be most excited to hear that, even if we weren't able to figure out a structure, where we could do this thing together or bring you into the company or whatever, that we're still, as I perceive it, finding ways to overcome those sort of like barriers and just find a way to get some business done regardless. And I think that's what's important to me, and I imagine he'll be right on the same page.
Well, not fishing for compliments, but what was David's initial thought was it his thought, your thought? How did it come about when I came to the table as a topic of conversation?
I mean, I brought it to the table. So yeah, I mean, it stemmed from me. I think he was upbeat. I mean, I think if you're David, let's not forget the context here. If you're David and you've been watching this thing for quite some time, and it's gone through a lot of different attempts, and I just like the way he thinks about it, I would have to imagine it's the way you think about it, which is like still with eager excitement about the possibilities, but also with a degree of skepticism, because we haven't delivered something concrete yet. And I think he's eager to just see something concrete delivered. I am eager to see something more than anyone else. I am eager to see something more concrete. I would imagine, you would as well. So, I think when I brought up the concept with you, I couched it as not being concrete because it wasn't concrete. It was a concept. Right. I wanted to get his ideas and his feedback and his input, but I think, in the case of your situation, in the case of this idea, if I, I haven't shown him this demo that I just showed you because I've shown him demos, and he thinks that I create some very pretty software, but I think what he's looking for is something concrete, are there people that want this today, and can we go deliver it to them? Those are the things that he, he also likes making small talk, but I think from a business standpoint, that's all he really cares to see right now.
Well, and I think, I said in my last question before, I guess I lied. It looks like you guys have a fabulous relationship, but is there, obviously this is confidential, is there a lot of pressure from him or he and his team on you at this point?
I don't think that there's any pressure in the universe that outshines the pressure that I'm putting on myself for this. You know what I mean? If there's a number two in line, it's probably Deepa, not more than David. I think everyone's they're upbeat about it. I think people like me. They like the idea. They like the concept. They just want to see something concrete. And everyone
right.
is eager to help. And so what you get from him and from my other investors is how can I help? One of his portfolio companies is a debt collection company. If it makes sense for me to be able to be a channel partner for debt collection to you and Ian and all of your end clients and provide something through this tool to be able to suck in, receivables and blah, 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 like he's there, he's ready to make an introduction, you know, and we'll happily do it. But I think for us, it's just like making sure that we know what we need and only asking for the things that, you know, that we actually need right now, because everything else becomes a distraction.
Right. Yeah, I just didn't know if relationships were, if the investors and or he was saying, hey, we love you, but, you know, we need something by X date, or
No.
what?
He's the opposite. No, he's the opposite. He generally doesn't push for quantitative stuff as much as for qualitative stuff. You know, I think for him, and by the way, I might not agree with this, but for him, I think if he got a firm commitment from you and Ian, that would be enough. You know, even if payment didn't happen at all, if no payment happened until March, you know, or whatever. You know, he just wants to hear that people are really excited about this. On my end, I also have, like, you know, business to run and expenses that we'll be incurring up front, you know, or at least from day one, you know, putting people on the platform. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah. All right. So let me do this. Let me go over some of this stuff with Al. And I'll get back to you with some thoughts.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right, so you're going to Miami to go see these weird Patriots. I call them weird because I love them.
Weird by the day.
I mean, yeah, it was amazing to watch them the other night, but then you see, to watch them against the Denver, and then you watch the other night, and you're like, what's going on?
Yeah, they've basically had every single game been decided like in the last 10 seconds the entire season, and it is exhausting as a fan. It's just like...
It's fun, but it's also like, you know, it goes to show that this team is very fragile right now.
Yeah. All right. Aren't we all?
All right. All right. Hey, thanks for putting this together. I'll look. I'll look for the deck. I'll look for the link, and then I'll walk Allie through it.
Sounds good. I'll send it on over.
Talk to you. Thanks, Ben. Talk to you soon.
Sir. Thanks a lot.
Bye.